सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत्। अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ये मयि सन्तु ये मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Let's chant the set of 5 mantras. Please repeat after me. Yadvachanabhyuditam yena vagabhyudyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidamupasate yanmanasa namanute yenahurmanomatam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidamupasate yachakshusha na pashyati yena chakshunshi pashyati tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidamupasate yachrotrena na shrunoti yena shrotramidam shrutam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidamupasate yat pranena na praniti yena prana praniyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidamupasate. The set of 5 mantras, this string of utterances found in this Upanishad, awaken us to the true meaning of truth. Upasana is loosely translated as worship, as adoring, holding something in very high regard. And around the world, we have, in the first place, religious worship. But apart from it, we have a number of things which we hold in high regard. Therefore, figuratively, the word worship is used in English and words with same meaning in other languages to connote our giving great importance to anything. For example, we say, so and so worships money. So and so worships power. For money or power or any other thing assumes tremendous importance. And that is the undoing of life. Their life becomes power-centered, money-centered, fame-centered, success-centered, pleasure-centered. People worship pleasure. The word worship thus has a wider meaning. People worship pleasure means they have given such pride of place to pleasure. Family-centered, work-centered. Some people are so work-centered. Of course, there is the saying, work is worship. That is said in a different spirit. It's not in the sense of attachment to work. We say work is worship in the sense of work can be made as such service through which we serve humanity, serve other people, and through that we serve God, or we serve that one truth which is in all of us. Work is worship is thus in a very complementary sense with a deep meaning. But a workaholic, as we call him or her, brings about such imbalance in life. Everything else is neglected. So take it on any level and in any context, religious or secular, the mantra comes down upon that kind of giving undue importance to what doesn't deserve such importance. So what should we be centered in, if not in any of these? Yesterday I think we raised the question, where should we belong? Everybody wants to belong somewhere, wants to have an association with something. And everybody imagines that by such belonging there would be security. But the deeper truth is, real security is when you clear your heart of all belonging. A tall order indeed. I am not saying you can do it easily. For this, clearing the heart of all belonging is something that comes about when tremendous attention is at work. For a number of forms of belonging, to our eyes, seem to give us a lot of benefit. we tend to keep such membership. This is good. This company, this community, this club, this religion, this organization, this affiliation is doing well. So, as long as it is doing well, let me remain there, and so on. Let me be in this boat. We say, that's understandable. However, as I said, when there is tremendous attention, one sees its limitation. Siddhartha, right when he was young, saw with such clarity, with great foresightedness, he saw that this youthfulness is not reliable. This being the prince of a great kingdom doesn't have much to offer to me really. For all this, in due course of time, will mean nothing. But most of us would not do that. Or we start thinking how to extend our youthfulness, how to stay as the prince for longer time. So upasana, worship, may be taken as, in a very large sense, giving importance to. In the language of Bhakti Marga, the devotee very quickly sees that God and God alone deserves to be loved. Loving anyone else, loving anybody else, loving anything else is fraught with pain. Swami Chinmayananji used to illustrate it with a Mullah Nasruddin story. So the mullah was sitting in the open, I believe, with a large bowl of chilies, red chilies, I suppose, or green chilies, some chilies. And one by one he is taking it, tasting it, and throwing it away. Then somebody comes along and asks the mullah, Mullah, Nasruddin, what are you doing? And he says, I am looking for, what are you looking for? I am looking for a sweet chili. Sweet chili? A huge bowl of green chilies he has taken. Is there a sweet chili? In that way, nothing in the world can give to us true security. Krishnamurti puts it in a language very unique to him. When you see that nothing at all can give you security, and therefore you give up your psychological dependence on everything, then you come upon security, he says. You come upon security by giving up hope on everything. Looks very strange. We will think that if we give up hope like that, we will be hopeless sooner. But he would hammer down the truth that this psychological dependence on our son, on our daughter, on our, you make any long list. Psychological dependence. What is psychological dependence? It's nothing but a creation in our mind by repeated thinking that through him, through her, through this, I will forever be all right. It's nothing to do with loving your son. Love your son, love your daughter, love everybody. That's different. So we use the word psychological dependence. This dependence is related to attachment, it's related to believing in permanence of what actually is impermanent. Earlier we talked about the power of word, power of shabda. And while this word seems to be great, it's not the truth. In the same way, a symbol seems to be great, but it's not the truth. An image, a figure, a form, all these occupy our mind. Our mind is clinging to all these, one at a time. Our mind clings, clinging, mind clings to something or the other. Maharshi Ramana says, the ego in us is born in images, feeds on images, takes one image and then lets go of another image. It is continuously nurtured by images, and when you inquire, who am I? Then the same ego is rediscovered to be without any image. It is rediscovered to be pure I. Here the word image stands for I as something. When I am attached to my son, I see myself as this boy's father. When I am attached to my country, I see myself as citizen of this country. So the attachment to an object, place, person, etc., you will see, is no other than seeing oneself in a certain form. Some years back, 2 years ago, a group of 20, nearly 20 people from mainly Chinmaya Association came to Varanasi. Chinmaya Mission members of Bombay, of Delhi, of Hong Kong, and some 4 or 5 places. And one of them asked me, I took them on a walk. In Varanasi, Rajghat, where I live, there is a beautiful walking trail called K Trail. K for Krishnamurti, Krishnamurti Trail. So anybody who visits, I make them walk. I said, come, let's go. Because it's worth seeing also. So I took them on a walk, and this lady from Hong Kong, who knew me for some years, here and there she had met me. So we were all walking at a particular point somehow. Others were behind or some were way ahead. She alone was with me. And she whisperingly asked me, so? I said, what so? Literally it was like that. So? I said, what so? Then she said, so, you see yourself now here? Do you see yourself now here? That's the English she used, in the same words. Then I understood, oh. I said, I don't know, I said. Then I said, this question many have asked me. So I say, I think 1 year at a time. If I were a very good sannyasi, I would have thought 1 day at a time. But nobody is so good these days. A sannyasi, thinks of just that day. Tomorrow where I will be, God knows. A good viragi. But I, being your friend, I say 1 year at a time. But this lady again looked at me, she said. So her question, you can relate to that. Your life also goes. You are here, you are there. In terms of physical place, you are in Bombay, you moved to Delhi, or you are in Delhi, you moved to Pune. So what this lady from Hong Kong asked this Swami in Varanasi could be a question that could be asked to any of you at any time. So you see yourself here. Here doesn't mean place alone, in a certain position, in a certain description. And it doesn't have to be a sannyasi to say, I don't know. Anyone who thinks a little deeply would say, I don't know. Because you don't know what tomorrow would be. Suppose to a married man, married 1 year ago, if I ask, so that wife is a little away. So you see yourself in this way with her. Really speaking, he should answer, I don't know. For life is full of changes. Sometimes you are the cause of it. Sometimes you try your utmost to prevent a change. But life forces a change upon you. Who thought that that little child of the Jewish rabbi in Hotel Taj would be without mother, without father, rescued by an Indian nanny and probably to be taken care of by that very Indian nanny in Israel now? The news went that the nanny also was given visa to Israel. So unpredictable. So we see ourselves in a certain way. This is nice. It seems to us at times, physically, position-wise, relationship-wise. It happens in families, it happens in ashrams too. Somebody joins a certain ashram and is very happy, is able to adjust. He says, I am made for this ashram and this ashram is made for me, etc. You never know. After some time, such unexpected changes take place. Gurudev Chinmayananda, in one video, you can see him laughing. He is addressing a bunch of brahmacharis. And suddenly he says, I don't know about all of you. One confusion has brought you here. Another confusion may take you away. He used to use such language. One confusion. The brahmacharis were really taken aback. Nobody said anything who would talk about, in front of Swami Chinmayananji. But I am sure many of them, no, not confusion. We have come out of Viveka Vairagya. The brahmacharis or brahmacharinis have that pride that we reflected upon the limitations of life and came to your ashram. It is not so easy. It seems so that you have come out of Viveka Vairagya. Swamiji spoke with 40 years of experience. He had seen many people come in, many people go out. So he said, one confusion brought you here, another confusion may take you away. Who knows? And he laughed. So I am trying to give a very large meaning to this upasana. And I quoted Ramana. Rupodbhavo rupatati pratishtaha rupashano dhuta grahita rupaha swayam virupaha swavichara kale dhavatyahangkara pishacha eshaha. He says, this ahankara pishacha, he calls it a pishacha, a ghost, inasmuch as it is unreal. That's the saving grace, See, that in us, which we call I, which clings, which is attached, thank God, is not the real I. The Vedanta says, when I am attached to my son, as an example, it's a phantom I. It's a artificial, imaginary I that is attached. Through self-inquiry, I shall come to see who I really am, and the real I has only love, compassion. The real I has no fear, no dependence. The psychological dependence which we are talking about is in a dream world. In a dream. Just it happened day before, I told people who received me at Valsad station. My train came at about, 9:30 it came. That morning 6:30 I dreamt, 6 or 6:30 in the train, I dreamt that somebody had stolen my laptop. See, we also have our attachments to laptop. And I was devastated. That is the word I picked up from North America. In North America, they use very strong words. Even if something small happens, they would say, I am devastated. So terrible. And then I said, we should lodge a police complaint now and all that. Then I heard a word, tea. I got up. And the Indian Railways catering service tea came. I looked at the tea, but I was not in a state of mind to welcome tea until I saw the laptop was inside. Ha! The laptop is safe. As though the real I was there in the laptop, Atma was sitting there as though. After ensuring that I had not lost my laptop computer, and I took the tea and drank it with great relief. So, apart from humor, tell me, who was afraid? Real I? No. In the dream, there was another Swami who was traveling and who lost his laptop. So, not only the laptop that was lost was unreal, the very person who lost it was also unreal. That was also an imagined figure. This is a very important thing. Yesterday also we tried to explain the known and the knower. Both are creations of thought. The object to which we say you are attached, and you, the subject that is attached. Both are figments of imagination. Both are, to use the Vedanta's language, they are enveloped in the light of consciousness. They are immersed in the undivided expanse of consciousness, and you are that consciousness. You are that Chaitanya Jyoti in which there arises an apparent I, and that gets attached to other apparent people, objects, and so on. So psychological dependence thus is a psychological phenomenon, a play of the mind, where you are dependent on something, where your happiness is tied on to that thing or person, and there is a lot of despair, a lot of going up and down and whatnot. All this happen, and we need to have that insight operate in us. That truth should operate in us, whereby the triputi, the knower, the known and knowing, the one who is attached, the object or person to which one is attached, and that thing called attachment, that is the triputi, that triad at one go has to dissolve. So this mantra is not to be limited to mere religious worship. Idam upasate, whatever people worship, not just Rama and Krishna, Shiva or Allah. The reference is to anything that is within the field of thought, within the field of mind, within the field of senses, and so on. For the truth which really deserves to be worshipped is not of the mind. It's not of space or time. It is the Adhara. It is the Adhara, substrate of this phenomenal world. It is the one Adhara, one substrate, not many. One substrate, one undivided substrate of all of us. The self in him, self in me, self in her, self in them is only one self. Not that everybody has one Atma to be discovered. We cannot go around saying, I am almost about to know my Atman. How is your position with respect to your Atman? No. Atma is one and the same. Just as the analogy goes, there is one sun in the sky and reflected images could be 100. If you have kept 100 buckets filled with water, yes, there are 100 reflected images. But the source is the one sun in the sky. So it seems to us that we are many. We are all one when we wake up to that reality. And that reality in this string of mantras is pointed out as the empowering principle behind speech. In the second of the 5, it is the empowering principle behind thoughts. The Western philosopher Descartes said, right, I think, therefore I am. A famous statement. I think and therefore I am. Vedanta goes in the opposite direction. Vedanta says, I am, that is the unquestionable truth, and therefore I think. Descartes made I think as the proof of I am. For him, perhaps the context was different. For him, the starting point was different. For him, I guess, his class was different. Perhaps it was a context similar to how you and I, while studying biology, have discussed the question of what is life, what is a living being, and what is inert, and then number of things are said generally, that which moves. Then we say a train also moves. So is train a living being? No, that is just one point, that which responds to stimuli. Now one by one these computers have started doing everything. Quite a few of those, in the simple list in elementary school, computers also do. Touch screen computers also, or touch screen mobiles also have come. You touch, it responds. They do many things more smartly than even we do. However, those are taken as a mark of life. If there is some object which moves, which responds to some stimulus we give, which seems to have some emotion also, you say, yeah, that seems to be a creature I have never seen before, it's a living being. So probably Descartes had to say, if there is thinking, that means I am. But Vedanta says, you are, whether you think or not, you are, and then this existence, Sat, itself is Chit. The Sat Chit empowers Manasa, Manaha. yan manasa na manute. So with your thought you can never conceive the truth. All religious propaganda goes on through words, through thoughts. Noble thoughts have to be spread, says the missionary. I am out to spread these noble thoughts which have helped me. I shall now impart these to others, says the missionary. All right, with all due respect to his good intention, the truth is, thoughts that you convey do not carry God. God is not in thoughts, God is not in words. More you delve into it, you will appreciate more why a good number of great spiritual masters would sit silently. They would not attach much value to either speaking or publishing books or producing CDs or cassettes and so on. So when they asked Maharshi Ramana also, is it necessary to give discourses in our spiritual context? He casually replied, you will give discourses if it is your prarabdha, he said. This prarabdha generally is an uncomplimentary word, Nobody says if you get Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan in New Delhi from President of India, nobody in your town will say, look at his prarabdha. Nobody. Whereas if on way to Delhi you meet with an accident and get hospitalized, then they say, look at his prarabdha. He was going to New Delhi to receive that title. Raste par accident ho gaya. Prarabdha is generally, though technically it is for both, as most of you know. Technically it's for both good and bad results. But in prayoga, in rudi, in usage, it's for something unpleasant. So Maharshi said, the questioner asked, should we give? He didn't answer the should and should not. There also, he was very subtle. Because Maharshi Ramana and teachers on that level, they don't touch upon should and should not so much, very rarely. You and I are hung up with the should and should not. Everything, is converted into should and should not. They just describe. So he did not say you should give discourses, nor did he say you should not give discourses. He said, you will give discourses if that is your prarabdha, if that is written on your forehead. You will give. In other words, giving discourses is फालतू. उसका अध्यात्म के साथ ज़्यादा संबंध नहीं है. इट इज सेकेंडरी. देने वाले देते हैं, नहीं देने वाले नहीं देते, उसका बड़ा मतलब नहीं है. Suppose you don't have right knowledge and you give 1,000 discourses with great amount of oratorical skills. What language, what idioms, what gestures, what body language, what histrionics, what modulation of voice, and even your mannerisms down the stage, up the stage, here, there. Fantastic, Suppose, but you don't have right knowledge in your heart. You yourself are not free from greed or jealousy. All that would be just like ash. They would have nothing. They would have no impact. It is only bhuktaye, natu muktaye, neither for you nor for your listeners. All your listeners also would feel good for a while, but there is nothing changing deeply in them. In contrast, imagine you have right wisdom. You have, by whatever, inquiry, meditation, study, whatever, you have that understanding about life about yourself that about nothing and about nobody you are jealous. You don't covet anything. You live in the present moment. And you may be hiding behind a tree in some jungle, but several kilometers radius, there will be an impact on people. This has been our faith all along. A man of wisdom, without uttering a word, will make a difference to his surroundings. A man of ignorance, with any amount of discourses, would not make much of a difference, some marginal thing. So then you see, manasa na manute. So by word, by thought, because word and thought in a split second are dead. You think and you say, I have such a nice thought. In a split second, it is frozen, it is memory, it is gone. Thought is like that, word also is like that. The great books, Shakespeare or Kalidasa, yes, they give happiness to people for a while, but they bore people also. Once they are introduced as textbooks, more people curse them than enjoy. A few enjoy, isn't it? Large numbers in any school and college read for examination only, number one, and then why did Shakespeare write all this? Meri musibat hai. It is frozen now. It is past. And we would go to the extent of saying that what made those words of Shakespeare have some life was not the word itself. It was a certain state of mind in which he was. Shakespeare or Kalidasa in our own country, they would go into a state of mind, a certain creative state of mind. Its grandeur is far higher. A little bit of it percolates into the words. Why do you want to worship the words of any poet? Try to, if it were a matter of trying, try to have that state of mind filled with joy, filled with inspiration. And that state is not the word. Word is just like if some flowers are kept, some smell comes. Words are like a smell that come out. The flowers are the source. The source of all poetry, the source of all grand wordy structures is something deeper. And Upanishad wants us to experience that. The Upanishads want us to go to that source, that one source from which Allah and Jesus, Rama and Krishna, the one source from which countless divine forms, most adorable forms came. Upanishad is saying, don't worship the form that has come out, but worship the very source. Once more, Swami Sarvananda also has clarified, it doesn't literally criticize worship of Rama or Krishna. It says, go higher. Therefore, in many of our bhajans, like yesterday the bhajan on Venkateshwara was sung, suddenly there is a word Chinmaya, Venkatachala Nilaya, Vaikunta Puravasa, and so on. Then Chinmaya Rupam. What is Chinmaya? Pure consciousness. So our bhajans also introduce some words which show to us the purest form of God. Then the secondary forms, tradition has always taken as stepping stones. The sages have not dismissed other forms of worship. Therefore, these mantras, in fact, these mantras have been interpreted in different ways by Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and so on. So, they have given all importance to upasana. and then they have equated it. In the sense, they have equated the form with that infinite truth. This form represents that infinite truth. So we don't mean to say don't worship this form, but in worshipping this form, take your mind to that infinite truth. In worshipping the finite, take your mind to the infinite, of which the finite is a symbol. So that is a moderate interpretation. So Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, they would go for that interpretation. Shankaracharya also would be fairly moderate, but then in certain contexts, some Advaita commentators may even say, give up worship of all name and form. So it's a matter of levels. It's like I ask you, settle for pure gold. Don't make an issue of what shape the gold has to take. So the shape, the name and form, some teachers could just dismiss them. Some teachers might accommodate name and form. But all teachers are unanimous in holding the view that name and form is not the ultimate. Name and form are the entry. Through name and through form, you enter the Chinmaya Rupa, the undivided, pure consciousness. The third in the set of 5 touches upon Chakshu, eyes. Here, for those of you who notice the word structure, which means a little grammar, you have something which could be intriguing. Yat chakshusha na pashyati, which means the ultimate truth is that which one cannot and one would not see with one's eyes. And the second part then is, second quarter, yena chakshunshi pashyati. The ultimate truth is that by which you see chakshunshi. Chakshunshi grammatically is plural. In Sanskrit you have singular, dual and plural. And for eyes, why use plural? Dual would have been correct. Or if you think of sight, suppose you talk of faculty of seeing, then singular. If you mean the eyes, they are 2. If you mean the vision, that is 1. But here plural is used. Chakshuhu, chakshushi, chakshunshi. This is what we call second case plural. Of course, in a Vedic text, one easy way of resolving it is Arsha Prayoga. Just say this is Rishi's license. But one should not do that everywhere. That, Rishis, sometimes don't care for grammar. Such things have to be used only in cases where nothing else works. So Adi Shankaracharya has said that chakshunshi here means chakshur vrittihi. See, when you see a pot, an earthen pot, I see the pot and instantly in your mind a ghata vritti is formed. A thought corresponding to that pot. Even if you close your eyes and somebody takes the pot away, in your mind the picture of the pot is. And that is called ghata vritti. Ghata is pot. When you see a flower, in your mind pushpa vritti is formed. Flower is pushpa. So ghata vritti, pushpa vritti, pata vritti, nara vritti, nari vritti. You see a woman, nari vritti is formed in the mind. So these vrittis corresponding to what the eyes see are plural. So by chakshunshi, which is plural, what is meant is chakshur vrittihi. That is also second case plural. Dvitiya vibhakti bahuvachana. That is one explanation given. Through vrittis, through corresponding thoughts, you gain knowledge of the pot, the flower, the man, the woman, and so on. But ultimate reality is one about which no such thoughts can be formed. There is no Brahma vritti, though in a distinct sense they use the word Brahmakara vritti, but it is not like this. So, about Brahma, you cannot have a particular thought which holds in its sway the supreme truth. But Brahma is that light which brings life to all these chakshuvrittis. When you see a pot, when you see a flower, when you see a fruit, when you see a tree, when you see a man, when you see a woman, when you see anything and everything, these optic thoughts, if we may coin a word, all these optic thoughts, chakshur vrittihi, or nominative would be chakshur vrittayaha. Vrittihi vritti vrittayaha, vrittim vritti vrittihi, like mati shabda. So, all the optic thoughts are made alive thanks to the light of consciousness, light of awareness. And the mantra says, you know what is most adorable in life? It is this awareness, this light. We die for so many things. A young woman in love with a man dies for that man, or man or for woman also, in romance. In English also they use, in Hindi also, hum aapke liye mar rahe hain, and all they use this expression, no? Marna. The Upanishad says, yadi aapko marna hai, Brahma ke liye maro. The one for whom you should die is the hidden truth within yourself. That's what Tulsidas' wife said to him, right? If you had this love for Ram, for rest of her life she regretted, I suppose. Wait. Or somebody commented, many wives must have said to many husbands, but this happened only with Tulsidas' case. And no gender bias, many husbands would have said to many wives also, मेरे लिए इतना क्यों मरती हो तुम, इतना तुम राम के लिए मरती तो हम दोनों को मोक्ष मिलता अब तक. ऐसे पति लोग पत्नी लोगों को, in your Bombay Hindi you add log for everything, बच्चे लोग, ये लोग, वो लोग. Not a good Hindi it is. Just say बच्चे. Why do you say बच्चे लोग? बच्चे आ रहे हैं, लड़के जा रहे हैं. बट इन बम्बई हिंदी बच्चे लोग सुनते नहीं, ये लड़के लोग आकर ये कर दिया. जस्ट से बच्चे, जस्ट से लड़के. एनीवे, सो मरना है तो दैट इज उपासना. मरना है तो ब्रह्म के लिए मरो. हैव दैट अर्ज, दैट मुमुक्षुत्व इट इज कॉल्ड, बर्निंग डिजायर फॉर ट्रुथ. एंड माइंड यू, Sarvananda has clarified one thing, that this burning desire for truth has no contradiction to Shiva Upasana, Rama Upasana and so on. In fact, as the intensity of your Rama Upasana grows, your Sakamatva goes away. Personal desires, asking for petty things, that goes away. That same Rama Bhakti becomes Nishkama Bhakti, Para Bhakti, and the divisions of Upasya and Upasaka goes away. Swamiji has made that clear in the Tippani. I would also say that this dying for Brahma has no contradiction with your loving and caring for people around. By mumukshutva you will not become irresponsible and you will not neglect your duties. What goes away is a whole lot of foolish pursuits, because we spend a whole lot of energy in foolish pursuits. Many times you and I are afraid, right, that this Adhyatma, the one problem is, more we go into Adhyatma, we become indifferent to our family members and so on. There is a risk, etc. If you seriously see, if you see it very scientifically, first of all, the belief that we love our family members a lot itself is an illusion. Actually, it is our swartha. My favorite example is I go get ice cream for everybody because I love ice cream. I ask the little child, you want ice cream? Child says, no. I am disappointed. Because I wanted to get ice cream and बच्चे के नाम से, बच्चे लोगों के नाम पर अपन को आइसक्रीम खाना था. But there are some boys and girls every time in some, they don't want anything at all. It's such a disappointment to adults. Cinema देखना है? The child says no. So we are disappointed because we wanted to go with the child as telling everybody, बच्चे को सिनेमा देखना था उसीलिए ले जा रहे, हमको देखना है उसमें. So first of all, see, I am clarifying, if you and I say that, I am a very loving and caring person for my spouse, for my children, for my people, and pata nahi, this Vedanta, what it will do to all that. This so-called caring and loving you re-examine. It may not be really caring for people, it's your extrovertedness. You want pleasures and fun and all that. And yes, you are including them and going everywhere. Secondly, I would say, even if you are so loving, because the true test of love is sacrifice. Do you sacrifice at times for sake of your so-called family members? Then there is some true love. Even if your love is so true, then what this mukshutva or this burning desire for truth would take away is number of wasteful activities which all of you together would be doing. Therefore, Scott Peck, the author of a popular book of some 15-20 years ago, The Road Less Traveled, gives a definition of love. He says love is extending oneself for the spiritual growth of the other. And what is spiritual growth? True growth, holistic growth, long-standing growth. If in the name of love to the other person, whoever, spouse or brother or colleague or friend, whoever, I just give him anything he wants, he just gives me anything I want, both of us may become sick and may become distracted. In contrast, the other person and I myself, both of us think in long range. What is good for us? What is healthy? What is wholesome? And for that wholesome, healthy growth, I extend myself. That means my narrowness I abandon, I relinquish my narrowness, I do something of a greater scope, greater significance. That would be love, he defines. So upasate gets one more meaning. What is it? You die for. And die for Brahma. And in dying for Brahma, everything falls into right place. Earlier I used the expression money-centered, power-centered, pleasure-centered, workaholic, that is work-centered. And then there are some people who are enemy-centered also. Day and night they think of their enemies. If you are their enemy and you have come to a spiritual camp, sitting in Pune or Bombay or wherever, they are worried. Now it seems he has gone to that spiritual camp. I don't know what he is up to now. They are suspicious about every move of yours if you are their enemy. Enemy-centered life. Din raat shatru ke bare mein sochna. Stephen Covey, a management guru, talks about these expressions. And he employing modern English or corporate language, says your life should not be work-centered, it should not be spouse-centered, it should not be centered in any of these partial things, because spouse is not whole of your life. Parents are not the whole of your life. And he uses the expression, you got to be principle-centered. Therefore, he has another separate book after his first book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Then he has a typical of Americans, one succeeds, they will bring out 7 books following that until the readers get fed up of their books. So there is a separate book on principle-centered leadership, workshop on principle-centered leadership, handbook on principle, calendar, table calendar on, wall calendar on principle-centered, day-to-day principle-centered leadership. These Americans, if you allow it to happen, they will drown you, all for a fee, and they will collect. So principle-centered leadership, when years ago that book inspired me, I enjoyed it. And then I reflected, this Yudhishthira in Mahabharata said, he called it dharma-centered life. Yudhishthira said, I am primarily centered in dharma. And when you are centered in dharma, suppose you are a grahastha, a man running a family, suppose in that scenario, being dharma-centered, then that dharma will take care of wife, children, parents, neighbors, society, country, everything comes in dharma. Dharma will not exclude anything. And the Upanishads go one step further. That is moksha-centered. For dharma also has certain limitations for those who think deeply. When they think deeply, they say dharma also, this business of do's and don'ts, they are all in the relative realm. As Krishnamurti would put it, what is good? Can you ever know what is good? He raises a question. And through very subtle arguments, Krishnamurti would typically establish that you can never know what is good. You can only stay alert and notice what is bad. In the elimination of what is bad, the good comes out on its own. This is unique language. Asatoma sadgamaya. You can know asat. You can know this jealousy is not good. This possessiveness in me is not good. So I could be aware of my possessiveness. I could be aware of my unnecessarily depending on somebody for everything. I could be aware of either my exploiting somebody or my not only allowing but wanting somebody to exploit me. The human psychology is very strange. Some people take pleasure in exploiting, and many of us take pleasure in being exploited. We want somebody to exploit us. Like there is on one hand sadism. In sadism you inflict pain and derive pleasure. What's the opposite of it? There is another. Is it narcissism?
Vicarious pleasure?
No, vicarious is, that perversion, vicarious, that's different. There is one word where, perhaps narcissism, no. There's some word where oneself suffers and delights in that. One form of it could be like, some time back when that movie came, Don Brown's Da Vinci Code. Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, that novel became a movie. There is one fellow who every night inflicts pain. He inflicts pain on his body, blood oozes out. It's a long exercise, very painful exercise. He does that, and at the end of it he is exhausted. He falls flat. Why does he do that? Because of some belief that by doing so God will love me more, I will be liberated sooner, and so on. Jihadis have also their psychology. So, to inflict pain and take pleasure, to cause pain to oneself and take pleasure, there are all this. You used a very relevant word, perversion. It's a strong word, but when you look at life with more rigor, though it may be a strong word, we could say that this mind of ours, alas, has many perversions. And I quoted Krishnaji. What he said boils down to or amounts to this. We could see our diversion, we could see our departure from natural, normal, simple human behavior. We have become possessive, we have become dominated, we have become servile, we have become sadistic or narcissistic or whatever. All these are in us. To notice this, and in that intense seeing and seeing it as so stupid or so silly, it goes. And in its going, what is good comes out. He says, you cannot conceive what is good. This is a challenge to our thinking. Normally, we divide, this is good, this is bad. Bhala karo, bura chodo. We make divisions. Dharma Shastras have always attempted it. And you yourself know how Dharma Shastra of one religion is different from Dharma Shastra of another religion. Dharma Shastras vary from place to place. Every 100 miles have some do's and don'ts change. Right? In a number of vidhi and nisheda, there is no unanimity. Therefore, it is one of the topics in philosophy, going by the question, what is virtue? And an attempt that you and I may take up, we may make an attempt to define virtue, you will find it's very difficult. As long as you are in a limited community, it will pass. Everybody says, "Badhiya kah diya aapne, yahi virtue hai." Walk 100 miles and meet another community. They say, we don't regard this as virtue. In many of our religions, not to marry, become a monk, etc. is virtuous. But in many other religions like Judaism, if somebody doesn't marry, it's not regarded as virtue. What's wrong with him? Not only in an ordinary sense, they think that if you do not marry and do not bring forth children and so on, you are doing a disservice to God. God wants to run their scriptures say that. God wants to run the world and you are refusing to cooperate. Their scripture says like that. Years ago I met one rabbi, and when he said that, I was very shocked. Oh, really? Because we have grown up, attaching some special values. It is in Hindu religion, it is regarded as a sacrifice. But mind you, in this world there are religions which regard not marrying as foolishness and some kind of an apachara to God. So this dharma centered, well said, 99% cases it serves the purpose.